Hello, hello. What's up, Meg?
Hi, how are you?
What's up?
Not much. Raging here.
Yes. Raging, yes. Oh, wow. Just admitting people. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go.
Hello.
Hello. What's
Hello.
up, Sharon?
Hi. How are you?
I'm great. I'm going to get rid of my dog. I'll be right back.
Oh. Hello, everyone.
Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Hello. Angel.
Hi.
Hello. Is everybody muted? Are we supposed to be muted?
I'm gonna mute myself.
Right, remember No, you don't have to mute yourself. We're just going to be saying hello for the first couple of minutes, so no worries.
Hey. Hello.
Welcoming everybody to the masterclass. Woo!
Yay.
Excited. What's up, Natalia? Imani in the house. What? Oh my gosh. I feel like this is a reunion.
I know, right?
Kelly, where are you at, girl? Imani,
Yeah.
where are you at?
Oh, where do I live? In Brooklyn. I'm still in New York.
Okay, you're still in Brooklyn. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, got it, got it. I see you, Carmen. I see you, Wallace. What's up, Steven?
Hey, what's going on?
How is it going?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Awesome. Just admitting people here into the virtual room. Admit. Nice. While we're all getting situated here in our virtual space, if you guys just want to drop a line of where you're logging in from, that'll be awesome. Nice. I see Amani's in Brooklyn, Meg in Oakland, Omaha, Lynn, Morgan Hill, Natalia. Hola, Dr. Carmen, also in San Jose. What? Down the street, maybe? Yes. Astoria, New York. Let's see. Oops, I gotta admit some more people here. Here we go. Here we go. Bringing in Nelly, bringing in Avery, bringing in Carla, Acuna, bringing in Sandrine, Warren, Simon. Oh wow, we're gonna have an awesome time, y'all. Bringing in Emily. What's up, Lily B? I see you, girl.
Oh, hold on.
What's up, y'all? So I'm just waiting for a couple more people to log in here. So if you need to go grab a drink or anything like that. What's up, Carla?
Hey.
How's it going, girl?
Long time.
Indeed, indeed. You know, this is great because most of y'all know that I moved from New York about a year ago, right before this quarantine situation. So it's nice to be able to see y'all.
Move from where?
From Brooklyn, New York to Northern California, San Jose, California.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay, we're just bringing in some more people in here. So we'll get started in a couple of minutes. Just want to make sure everyone's kind of situated in the virtual space here. Angel, I see you're eating food. That's cool. That's cool. Oh, what up? I see Jonay's adding us in. All right, so we're gonna get started in just a minute here.
Well, you
Not
got
gonna
a
be able to do
yap?
that. I do. Y'all want to see my yapper before we get started? Come on,
Yeah.
come on, come on. People want to see you. People want to see you. All right, say hi. This is my pup. This is Bella.
Aw.
Hi, Bella.
She's a 12-pounder that I I adopted when I moved here to California, and absolutely love her. But on situations like today, it's like, ain't gonna work, homie. So you're going right back to your little
Alexa, stop playing.
Like the what? Okay, I think we're almost ready to get started. Just need to admit some more people here. What's up, Sandrine, Warren, Wallace, Janae? I see you, Carla. How's it going, Jude? Awesome. I have you all in gallery view, so this is just really nice to be able to see everybody from all these different walks of life all coming together. Oh gosh, now we're on 2 different pages. All right, that's cool. Oh, all right. All right, y'all ready to get this party started?
Mm-hmm.
I think so too. All right, so I'm super amped. I am super amped about being able to present some of the top tips, tricks, and strategies. For your story. For those of you who are storytellers, you might know some of this stuff. B, the way that you can take your story and actually turn that into a speech, and then taking that speech and making that into a sale. So I'm going to be introducing you to a couple of different things that have really lighted up my world, I would say, in the past 10 years. Why I think right now is the critical moment for anybody who's interested in any type of storytelling or speech development to start working on some of these things, and basically what is in store for the future, because obviously this is a very different time in the world for everybody. And at first, when a lot of stuff was happening, I sure as hell didn't know what was going on. I sure as hell didn't know what was going to happen to the speaking industry or to live events, or just being able to spread our messages through different platforms. But I have a lot of stuff that to update you all on in terms of like what's been working and what I'm seeing in terms of trends for the future. So I'm super excited. Let me go ahead and jump into my slides here. Give me 1 second. I see you, Josh. How's it going, brother?
What's up, Don? How you doing?
I'm doing great. All right, here we go. So, oh, y'all can't see my screen yet. Hold on 1 second, y'all. A little bit of a technical issue here. 1 second. I gotta go back to present mode. All right, there we go. Now we're in business. Okay, 1 second. 1 second, y'all. Thanks for your patience. All right, y'all can see the slides? Great. Let's go into present mode. All right, y'all can see the slides, okay? Excellent,
Yes.
excellent.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so a lot of you already know me, some of you don't. So I just wanted to start off with a little quick introduction about who I am and the journey that I've been on over the past 10 years as a storyteller, as a speaker, and now as a speech coach. So to give you guys a little bit of context, most of you know that I have been living in the Bay Area for about a year now, but for the past 15 years, I was living out on the East Coast in Brooklyn, New York. And in 2010, I enrolled in a storytelling class. It was just like an opportunity to try and express myself, to see what was going on. And at the time, I had no idea how much enrolling in this one class was going to just change my entire life. The class was storytelling, like storytelling 101, just getting up on your feet and being able to share any story from any walk of life. Many of you might be familiar with organizations like The Moth or Risk or other podcasts out there where people are just up there sharing true stories live with no notes. So I took this class and then I started, going to a couple of different storytelling shows. But then I decided that I really wanted to host my own show because there was just a magic that I felt every time that I passed by my local barbershop. So this is a barbershop on Fulton Street in Brooklyn, in Fort Greene, Brooklyn. It's called Deluxe Gallery. And I wanted to see what it would be like if we could just take people from all walks of life. Didn't matter if you were Asian, Black, white, Latino, non-binary. Like, I didn't really care. The only thing I really cared about is if you had a story that would kind of connect us together, like those connecting binds. If you had a story, I wanted to be able to put it on display inside of this barbershop. And so what ended up happening was this show started getting a lot of attention. It was a lot of fun. We would just pack these salons and these shops with comedians, memoirists. Could see a dude over here is getting his hair cut while one person is telling a story. And it was just an awesome experience to be able to bring this to like barbershops all over New York City, from Harlem to Brooklyn. And I was just having like a really amazing time hosting my own shows and telling stories. But the challenge with this was I wasn't really getting paid. I loved the idea of getting up, sharing stories, hosting shows, but I needed to try and find a way to actually like make some type of living off of this, right? I mean, y'all know New York City is not a cheap place, right? So what I did, back. One more again. Okay, there we go. So I took this story, this kernel of a story that I had been sharing in barbershops and other shows, and I decided that I was going to try and translate my story into a speech. Now, the story that I was sharing was about a moment at UCLA when I was down and out. I was injured. I wanted to be an Olympian, but I was down and out, and I wasn't really feeling like myself. I wasn't really feeling competent to be a student, nor competent to be an athlete. And I really did not want to be at UCLA. But in a twist of fate, my twin brother who has Down syndrome, just so happened to qualify for the Special Olympics. Now, he comes to UCLA, he's running in the Special Olympics, and at the time, I'm just kind of amped because I'm thinking to myself, all right, if I can't compete anymore, if it's a done deal for me, at least my twin brother has a shot at the Special Olympics. This is going to be epic. I couldn't believe it was happening at UCLA. And I was like, all right, boom, I'm there. I'm doing this, right? So I'm in the stands. Dwayne is on the track. He's doing all right. He's running his race, and he does all right. He does all right in the run, but he doesn't win. He doesn't even get third. He actually gets sixth place. And at the time, I was kind of bummed because I was like, damn, this is really it. Like, there's not going to be anything left anymore. But then I realized that I was kind of being a jerk in this moment because I looked down and I saw Dwayne like high-fiving the other athletes. I saw Dwayne like hugging the coaches. I saw him just like in his element. And this moment, I started realizing that I needed to shift my mentality in terms of what it meant to be an equal, being his twin, and what it meant to also advocate for for equality. Give me a second here to turn off my notifications because I don't want this thing dinging in my ears. Okay, great. So yeah, so here I was at UCLA, and the first couple of times I shared this story, I focused pretty much on my transformation, like what was happening in my life. But little by little, I started realizing that one moment from my life could be expressed in a lot of different ways. Maybe the change or the idea or the story idea wasn't necessarily about me being a better person or me being an advocate, but maybe it was like about a broader idea. Once I figured out what that broader idea was, that idea we're spreading, I was able to pitch it to TED. And over the course of 2 years, from 2012 to 2013, I actually got on TED stages. And so this is a picture of me at TED, which was a complete dream scenario. I never thought that I'd actually be able to be on the stages of TED, but this truly happened. And this was 2013. So I started seeing a trend here because I was able to take my story, which was just a story, ended differently than my speech. My story, the way my story ended was about me understanding that I needed to be a better person, a better sport, and a better twin. My speech ended up being about the idea we're spreading. And in this case, the idea we're spreading was more of a global call to action. It was more about thinking about how we treat people with special needs and reterming it in terms of special gifts. So instead of the significance of the story being about me, it became like more of a global call to action. And little by little, I started seeing that being able to choose the way that we select our stories and the way that we talk about our stories can lead to amazing, amazing changes and transformation, not only for your audience, but also for me personally. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what happened in terms of my transformation, and then take you through some of the steps that you can look for as you're looking for speeches, ideas that ignite, and then how to also amplify those particular ideas. So in my case, I decided that I wanted to become a coach. So when I started looking at what I was really good at, it was really working in community, working with people all over the world. And so this is what I decided that I was going to make my career out of. If my sale was going to be coaching, I was going to be the best coach. And so this was actually working with a group of people in India last year, maybe a year and a half ago at this point. But little by little, I started seeing that whatever I decided I wanted to do with my TED Talk, I could, because little by little, I was starting to gain authority as being a coach just by having a TED Talk. Mind you, the talk had nothing to do with coaching. The talk had nothing to do with storytelling, but it was still a TED Talk. All right. So little by little, I started really getting a lot of attention as a coach and as a speech coach, and started traveling the world with my message. So how does this relate to all of you? First of all, we need to kind of get into the mindset about what is a story and why your story matters. Okay. So really quick, a lot of you probably have been seeing what's been going on in the media, in the news, in today's times, and stories are the number one way to build connection. The number one way to build connection. So this is from, I think it was one of the award ceremonies from a couple of years ago, where I started understanding a little bit more about the idea of empathy bias. So empathy bias is when we can emphasize with somebody from an in-group versus other members of society, right? When we actually connect with people. So this is an example of what typically happens when we're looking at any type of speaker. A lot of times the person doesn't even have to be a speaker. Sometimes this just happens with people that we just run into on the street, right? There's what we know of as a bias map in terms of how we see people based on their competence and on their warmth. So for example, we typically, people who are part of our out group, people who are not part of our demographic, this is what typically happens. So we see that there's high warmth but low competence, high warmth, high competence, low warmth, low competence, and low warmth and high competence. So for example, high warmth, low competence. We see elderly people having a lot of warmth, right? We see housewives and the disabled and typically Latinx people having very caring personalities, right? But a lot of times they're seen as not being very like quote unquote competent, right? Whereas low warmth, people that typically do not get a lot of attention include the homeless, drug addicts, welfare recipients, and oftentimes we associate those people as having low competence as well. Whereas, and I'm kind of going down and around on this particular grid, whereas if we look at people that we typically think of as having low warmth and high competence, low warmth like working mothers, model minorities, feminists, female CEOs, we see them as having highly competent to do their job, but low warmth, right? And then of course we have this category of people that we see very likable and highly competent, including white men, fathers, people of our in-group, and our allies and our friends. And this has been studied in terms of like what people perceive initially when somebody of one of these demographics kind of steps onto a stage. Now this is being changed dramatically and a lot through the power of the story. So the question is, how do you make somebody from your out member group into an in-group member? You do that through your story. So I'm first going to talk a little bit about the role of stories and then how to actually find your stories. So stories, the first thing that you want to think about for the role of stories is stories show purpose. They can show what you stand for, what you believe, and they're always like they can always be used as a source of inspiration. They answer the question of why, and they demonstrate your values. So instead of saying that I'm somebody who values equality, I show it through a story. Or instead of somebody that said that I value diversity, I show it through my story. Because what happens in the brain is that we actually connect with people's stories much more than just a fact or just a, something that's out there as a word, right? So stories serve the role of having a purpose. There's a purpose to them. Stories also serve this role of actually being to like build relationships, right? So it shows the potential of working together in collaboration or in partnerships or reaching across different demographics. So if you think about a lot of the work that's going on now with Black Lives Matter and other organizations like, white women doing stuff in collaboration, or people, Latinx people doing stuff in collaboration. There's all these different ways that we're starting to see that the story that you're sharing can build relationships. And so if you're looking to build relationships with the people outside of your in-group, then you start to show where your values intersect and where they coalesce. And a story can do that, and it does it absolutely very, very well. And last but not least, a story can also show possibility. So a lot of times people kind of go back to the classic example of the Martin Luther King speech, where he's talking about the possibility of a new future. In the current day, segregation, little white boys and little Black girls could not interact, but the possibility was that the vision was that things would change, that one day that they would be able to. And so sharing the story of like where we're at today and where we could be is a story of possibility. So there are many ways that stories actually can be utilized, but I want to actually take some time to give you some of my top tips as relates to finding your stories and then translating those stories into the idea, the same way that I took my story with my twin brother, Dwayne from UCLA, and translated that into the idea. So first off, let's start off with finding stories to share. One of the things that I always start with in terms of finding and coaching people is honing in on scenes. So the first step in actually finding and sharing a story is honing in on scenes. Now, what are scenes? Scenes are moments that can be expressed almost like in slow motion, right? They're times that you will never forget. So the way that the brain works is if every single day I walk my dog at 9 a.m., I grab some coffee, and then I come back home, that's my norm, right? But then one day I'm out walking my dog and there's nobody on the streets and the stores are closed, right? I remember that day because it's a diversion from the norm. It's different from everything that has been going on in life, right? And so what happens with the brain is we remember moments that are a diversion from the norm. So we remember those days that was the first time that I went to my local coffee bean and realized that this might be a long, long time in quarantine, right? We also remember those moments that are kind of like sparks or aha moments for us, times that we've changed. So for me, those moments when you're just so inspired, or you take some type of action, or something is different, or you just say, ja, basta, I've had enough, right? You want to kind of keep in mind and keep a log of moments that are like this for you. One of my fellow storytelling buddies, can you all hear that dinging, or is that just me?
Just you.
Great, I'm gonna ignore it then. So one of my buddies, he has this TED talk or TEDx talk. It's called Homework for Life. And one of the things that he talks about is the idea that we're always having moments come to us, right? We're always having these experiences come to us. And Homework for Life is actually like just kind of jotting down those moments that are coming to you like every single day. Because what happens is, as storytellers and as performers and as people who are like trying to like, ignite people with our words and with our ideas, is we have to kind of like look back at those moments. And sometimes they're not even like the most significant moment of our life. Sometimes it's not like the grandiose things. It's just like these little small moments that we're able to reflect upon in the future. So if you think about something that maybe happened to you this week or this past month, what was that moment? And then think about what was that feeling. So scenes consist of emotion and something that's moving, something that's going. It's on a trajectory. But the scene is like almost like if you take that trajectory and it's like kind of like 30 seconds. It's like it's a snapshot, right? So scenes are important to first figure out what might be these moments that are important as I craft my story, okay? The second thing to think about is, okay, you have a moment. What is it that you most wanted out of this moment? Like, what did you have to gain or to lose, or what obstacles did you face, right? When you're able to identify what it is that you want, you're able to show why it's important, right? Have you ever been like in a bar or like chatting with somebody and somebody's just kind of like going on and 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 on with a story, and you don't know why it's important or when they're even going to stop? I know I have for sure. Oops, 1 second. There's some more people here. Admit. There we go. Okay, great. Yeah, so what's at stake? What do you most want out of this situation? And what did you have to lose or to gain by actually getting out of the situation? And last but not least, a story consists of some type of reflection or some type of significance. What did you learn from this moment? Like, what does it mean to have gone through this? So finding stories is really about honing in on like these moments that you remember in your mind, figuring out why it was important to you. What did you want out of this? and what does it mean? Okay, so it's a very kind of simple like triangle that we're looking at in terms of finding stories to share. So now we're going to talk about like how do you take a story or moments that you kind of like thought about in your life and translate that into a speech. So a speech consists of having a really solid idea. Okay. Now, a lot of these ideas I've adopted over the years from working with people who are going on to TED or onto like different types of stages. So this is what we've seen in terms of like what makes a really good idea. First of all, you want to draw new conclusions. Okay. A lot of times people might think, well, this topic has been talked about, or a lot of people have already addressed this issue. But the thing to really think about is there a different conclusion, or is there a different way to draw out like what this truly means? Something that might be surprising, challenging, or just different, right? 2, is this idea interesting? Meaning, is it interesting to like a broader audience? If it's interesting to like your in crowd, that's great. But you have to make it like more accessible to people who might not necessarily be in your in crowd. We want to make this something that can be translated to anybody who is watching your presentation or listening to your speech, right? We want to make it interesting. And third of all, because it's a speech and not a story, your speech is going to have like some type of call to action. We want people to take action based off of what you're saying. We want them to think differently. We want them to do something differently. We want them to take action in a different way. Now, is your call to action realistic? Can they actually like do what it is that you're recommending that they do? If any one of these 3 is a no, you go back, you refine it, you retune it, right? Until you finally get that idea that does spark. So in my case, when I was working with the organizers from TED, they asked me, okay, Dawn, what do you want to title your speech? And I said, okay, I want to title it Special Needs and Special Gifts, right? Because at the time, that was what I felt needed to be the message. Translating those who think about special needs into the concept of acknowledging that people with special needs also have very special gifts, right? About a year later, and I'll explain why it took a year in a minute. A year later, they came back to me and they say, we want to republish your talk, and we want to give it a new title. And the title this time around is going to be Reimagining What It Means to Win. I was like, okay, reimagining what it means to win. So they wanted to be able to spin a lot of the content into a different idea, which was reimagining what it meant to win, as opposed to talking about special needs and special gifts, which was perfectly fine with me, because I started seeing that there are many different iterations and many different ways that you can express your idea. And depending on like which nuggets of wisdom you choose, it can change the way that the actual presentation itself is interpreted. In my case, that was exactly what was happening. Like instead of people really like leaning into the idea of special needs and special gifts, they were leaning into this idea of like reimagining what it meant to win. So it was the same damn story, the same damn speech, but it just had a different call to action. And that got me thinking that when it comes to both our stories and our speeches, there are a million different ways, a million different iterations that we can think about what is going to make a good story and what's going to make an idea spark and what's going to make it spread. But it kind of boils down to, is it drawing a new conclusion? Is it interesting? And is it realistic? Oh, and I forgot to mention that the reason why it took a year is because it's TED. You just never know like what they're doing with your content. But once you have like your story, and once you have like some type of idea or spreading, it's a matter of now figuring out like, how do I put this into a structure, right? Have you all seen this before? You guys seen the narrative arc before? I can't see all y'all on my screen, but that's okay. Okay, I see a couple hands. Yeah. Okay, I see you, Meg. Awesome. So for those of you who are new to the idea of narrative arc, I'm just going to kind of go through this rather quickly. Oops, 1 second. Adding some more people to the waiting list. Okay, cool. So one of the things that we look for in when we have a story, or when we have like some type of a kernel of wisdom, is actually sticking into a structure that makes sense. So if any of you have seen this, is going to be a repetition, but I'll just kind of go through it rather quickly. The beginning of your story, of your presentation, you kind of have like the setup information, the need to know information for your content, which is the beginning. So if you look at like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, for example, we know Dorothy is living in Kansas. She has a dog named Toto, and she doesn't really like being at her crib, right? Missing from this little thing is like a little right here, right at the beginning of the raising stakes. It's what's called the inciting incident. The inciting incident. So the inciting incident is something like it's a spark, something that happens that kind of sets your story or your speech into motion. In Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, it's the tornado, right? There's this big old tornado, comes down, boom, whisks her away, right? If that tornado doesn't happen, the rest of the story, the rest of the arc of the story doesn't happen, right? In your stories and in your moments and in your memories, the beginning of the raising of the stakes are typically those moments that we were talking about a moment ago. They're typically those moments that you'll never forget because it was a diversion from the norm, something that was a little bit different, right? It's something that kind of sets our story into motion. The third part of the arc is what's called the raising of the stakes. And the raising of the stakes is when you, the protagonist, are trying something out, but you fail. You try something else out, you fail. You try something else out, you fail. Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, I'm gonna mess this up because I don't, fully remember the story, but like she has to deal with like the lion that has no heart, a tin man who has no brain, she has to deal with all these people. She just wants to get home. She has to like beat this witch, right? These are all problems because all she wants to do is what? Get home, right? That's all she wants to do. Just go home. That's all she wants, right? Until finally we get to this moment, this climax moment where there's going to be a shift. These are also those moments that you remember because it's like, I will never forget that day when ... In the climax of this story, she beats the witch, right? She's accomplished that. She's good. And then after that, it's not much longer until we reach our conclusion / resolution, which is, there's no place like home, right? When you're looking at this arc, the beginning of the story is a direct reflection of the end of the story. The beginning of the story, she didn't want to be at home. At the end of the story, she realizes there's no place like home, right? With our speech, we need to expand upon that, and we need to get into what is now the call to action. But this is basically a structure that we look at when we're trying to, this is one structure of many, actually, that I should say, that we look at, and we tend to try and organize our thoughts and ideas into something that makes sense for an audience. So it's a little bit of Frankensteining, your story or your speech, but once you kind of know these elements, you'll start to see it over and over and over again. Your favorite books, your favorite podcasts, your favorite movies, like you are going to start to see this pattern over and over and over again. The hero's journey, it all kind of takes us on this journey, right? So when it comes to ideas, one of the things that I've been really inspired by lately is this grid thing that's called mapping our roles in the social change ecosystem. So the reason why I brought this out is because a lot of times people will come to me and say, well, my idea isn't necessarily unique. My idea isn't necessarily different. Is that going to fly? And the thing is, there's a story and there's a speech inside of you that only you can tell because of who we are relative to this larger ecosystem. So recently I've been working with a group of health advocates and, telling stories about health access and health equity. And each one of these people are telling a story about health access, right? But each one of them also comes from a different lane. They all come from a different profession. Some of them are guides, some of them are healers, some of them are visionaries, frontline responders, experimenters. And the story that each one of them tells is unique to them because, we might all be advocating for health, but, you're a healer and you can talk about what's going on in your journey as a healer as it relates to health access and health equity. Or you might be a visionary, but nobody is going to be able to tell your story the way that you can based off of your experiences and based off of the things that you have gone through in your own life. So the challenge then is when you're coming up with an idea, you first have to put yourself into the equation, right? You have to come up with those moments that are a direct reflection of where you want people to go or what you want people to think. Then you have to figure out like what makes me different from maybe some other people who have shared a similar message, or what might be my unique spin on this, or is this a different way of thinking about things, and then is it actually actionable? So when you think about like yourself, think about how you might be different or unique from other people who might be in the same industry, who might be in the same field, but still you can reach either a similar conclusion and still have a really solid talk or a really solid speech as you're putting your content together. So we've gone from the story, like figuring out like how to get like different elements of your story, how to translate into the speech in terms of those ideas. Now we want to talk about what it means to actually turn this into a sale. Now, a sale can be like many different things to many different people. There are people who use speaking as a business. In other words, they're constantly like going out, getting paid for delivering a speech. There are people who use speeches to support their business. So it's not like their main line item, but they'll go out, they might give like some free speaking engagements in order to sell their coaching practice, or they might go out and do different speaking engagements so that people know that they're a thought leader. In my case, I wanted to use my speech in order to show that I could become a coach, and I could be a really effective coach. So what is your sale? Like what is the thing that you ultimately want to do with your speech? It's kind of important to figure that out depending on where you're at. If you're using your story, if you're using your speech as a business, like if you want to become a professional speaker and be paid to deliver that message in order to support your business, or if you just want to be able to like use it to show that you are an industry leader, a thought leader, right? So there's ways of like building each one of these blocks, and it happens really naturally and really organically. Going back to my own example, right? Starting off with first being at places like the Moth, sharing a story, translating that story into a TED Talk and many other talks as well. And then from there, showing that I had credibility to be a coach. And the beautiful thing about TED and TEDx's is that nowadays there are more than 50,000 TEDx opportunities. 50,000, that's a lot. That's a lot. Ultimately, the goal for a lot of people who do a TEDx talk is to get onto the main platform, which is TED.com. So TED's main platform is TED.com. And the way that they're able to curate their content is by having all these little smaller TEDx's all around the world. All of that content goes to Big TED for them to review, to see like, is this something that we want to put on the TED.com platform? Because that's where most of the people will go. Well, that's where the eyeballs go, right? That's where people go to find a lot of their content, inspiration, whatever it may be that they're looking for. They go to TED.com. Now, those aren't all curated from TED. TED meaning Big TED. Big TED meaning TED, the one that used to happen in Vancouver, TED Med, TED Ed, TED Woman, TED at New York City. There's a couple of different iterations now, different TEDs, which typically are curated, and it's invite only from TED, with the exception of once a year, which we'll get to in a moment. And then TEDx's are locally organized TEDx events. So it could be like TEDx at your local university. It could be TEDx San Jose. It could be TEDx Berkeley. So there's a bunch of locally organized people who get the license from TED to put on their own TED-like events, TEDx, which are just as amazing, just as popular, and a lot of times will just do just what you need it to do in order to really amplify your message or your persona or whatever it is that you need to do in order to be you, right? In order, whatever it is to identify what that sale is. So I'm going to show you a couple of case studies of what I'm talking about here. So Jackie Cruz is, many of you probably know her as Flaca from the show Orange is the New Black. Many of you follow that show. So Jackie Cruz was one of my first one-on-one speech clients. And she had a really traumatic car accident when she was younger. And her agent came to me and mentioned that she had a really solid personality. People really loved her, but didn't quite know how to translate the car accident into the success that she's had on Orange is the New Black and now as a singer and a couple other things. So sat down with Jackie to try and figure out, okay, how do we translate your what happened to you into something that can be put onto a TEDx stage? And there were all these different elements that she had talked about in her life as if it was insignificant, I should say. Insignificant? Okay, speech coach, insignificant. Anyways, so we went back to that original exercise, like identifying like what are these moments in your life. And in her case, there were a couple of people at her hospital that really kind of started to give her like strength in terms of getting over, like she was basically like in a coma for quite some time. And she had to like relearn everything, including doing like all kinds of surgery. So they shaved off all of her hair. And then all of a sudden one day, as she's trying to become a professional actress, she gets a call from an agent saying, hey, they have this new show out that's coming out called Orange is the New Black. And, you know, do you want to audition? She said, I look like crap. I'm not feeling this. And the people say, well, you don't need to look like anything. These are women who are going to be incarcerated. They're real women. You look like a real woman. And she went ahead and applied for, you know, the position, got it, and started realizing that she had always been so focused on her, you know, her not her identity, but her image as being like, you know, really just like a beautiful person. And here she was just coming at it raw. So it was interesting though to realize that she hadn't even really tapped into some of these things as a potential for her speech. So worked with Jackie and had great success and a lot of fun as well. And then came one of my next clients, Jeff Rosenblum. He's the CEO of an ad agency out in New York City called Questus. And at the time, they were starting to get like a lot more recognition for their work and kind of like their new idea about advertising. And so he wanted to name his title, Can Advertising Save the World? Right? And I was like, can advertising save the world? Really, Jeff? And, you know, it was like one of those things where he's like, well, I have like a couple of hooks that I want to like introduce in the talk. You know, I'm not going to give it away or anything like that. But the title worked, and so did his speech, to the point where like afterwards they were able to, I think, actually a couple years in a row, they were the ad agency of the year in the advertising world, because so many people had connected to his TEDx talk, to what he was sharing, and what his message was all about, right? Which was just totally mind blowing. So I started seeing, like, little by little, as I was working with people, that being able to get a signature talk or be able to land on a TEDx stage could really start to shift things in your business, in your personal life. It started shifting things for me, because the next thing you know, I get the call of a lifetime, which was to work with the rapper Common. If you guys don't know Common, he's Grammy Award winner, love of my life, in my personal opinion. You know, and I was shitting bricks, y'all. I was shitting bricks. I was like, wait a minute. I've worked with people like Jeff. I can do Jackie Cruz. I don't know if I could work with a world-class lyricist. Like, this is ridiculous. This is insane. And on this particular day that this picture was taken, I was so nervous and so jacked up. It was the middle of winter. I ended up throwing up all over this man's car. Like, like for real. Like, we're going over the Brooklyn Bridge, and there is vomit, projectile vomit, just like going down the side of his car. And I'm freaking the fuck out because I'm just like, oh my God, I've completely messed up this opportunity. I cannot believe this. This is my worst nightmare. I can't believe this. And so the next day, I sent him a text. And this is the text that I sent. His real name is Rashid. And yes, he is Common in my phone. So I was like, hey, Rosh Love, it was a great job with the speech last night. Glad we were able to connect and make that happen. We'll hit up Kristen soon, which is his old assistant, to set up next steps. And thanks for Red Rooster. Zara and I love breaking bread with you and hanging with you too. And then I said, P.S. Sorry about the car, quote, mess. Hadn't eaten much earlier in the day, and obviously it worked against me, right? I was totally expecting this man to be like, you know what, chick, you're done, peace out, right? He replies back, peace, it was great to hang with you both. You're wonderful ladies, and I appreciate your support. Let's make these speeches special because the people are listening. Love. And I was blown away. Keep in mind, my TED Talk was in 2013. I started becoming a one-on-one speech coach around that time. By 2014, all of these gigs started coming in little by little. And obviously people like Common didn't even care that I was throwing up all over his car. And they were still bringing me on to do what I wanted to do, which was to sell my coaching services. So it was really a game changer to start working with these people in this particular way. But then I started realizing that you know, that this was amazing. This was great. I was doing stuff with like Google and Spotify and, you know, like one-on-one clients and all this kind of stuff. But little by little, I started also noticing that, like, unless you were part of like one of these groups, I wasn't going to be able to coach you, right? And I didn't want that, because like even seeing all of y'all faces here, you know, there's so many of you who I love. I love all y'all. There's no one I don't love on this call. You know, at the same time, I didn't know, like, how am I gonna like work with my people? You know, especially at a time like now when so many of us are in our houses, are doing different things, and there's a shift. There's this shift that's happening, right? So so in 2018, I started like looking at ways that I could start to build in like online and like group coaching in a way that you didn't have to be part of like some exclusive club in order to like, you know, get coaching, find your story, find your speech, and then figure out how to best amplify that into whatever you need to amplify it into. Um, so the question about why is now? Why is now like the time to actually start to think and consider, either drafting your speech, working on your stories? There's a couple of things that are like seriously really, really interesting. Well, the first thing is that well, let me back up. In March, I was supposed to have like a great month. March was like on and popping. It was bringing in about like 10K from different like, coaching gigs and whatnot. And that was after coming back from like being in Brazil, like shaking my booty, doing the damn thing. I was just like, yeah, this is great. I can go on vacation on points, mind you. Just like I paid like $25 for that flight to Brazil. Whole nother story. Anyways, get back here and boom, income done. Not happening, right? My engagement down here in Monterey County, it's like we can't bring anyone together. My gigs that were coming up there was about 2 of them that were happening in March alone, and then again in April. All of a sudden, just like dropping like flies, right? And I was freaking out because I was like, this is pretty much the end of like my speaking career or my coaching career or something, right? But about a month or so into it, I got a text message from one of the agents. As I mentioned, I work with a bunch of different speaking agents around the nation, which is how I'm introduced to people like Common and Lori Grenier and Jackie Cruz and all these other people who come, who have my phone number. And so I asked her, I was like, what's the word? Like, are you guys going out of business? Because nobody's doing speaking engagements right now. And surprisingly, she's like, no, there's this huge shift right now. And I started seeing it also with my own clients. So in March, when I thought that I was going to lose that $10,000, I was able to reposition what I was doing, help people see how they might be able to translate what we do typically live into a virtual experience and retain all of that money from all of my engagements. I don't think I'm now going to lose a cent. It's been delayed, it's been delayed by a bit. But to be honest with you, these past couple of months have given me the opportunity to reframe and reshape some of my programs and some of my offerings because I have the time all of a sudden. I've been here quarantined with this dog that you all saw a little bit earlier, just yapping. And little by little, I started seeing that being in quarantine, being in like, in our little silos does not mean that we stop learning. It doesn't mean that we stop progressing. It means that we start to pivot and we start to pay attention to what we can do, what we're starting to see, what we're starting to feel, which now is not even, like there's like so much going on. I know you all feel the shift that's been happening like in our streets, in our communities, in here. There is so much that's shifting. And I have been inspired by so many friends who have started to take action. Regardless of who they are, where they live, what's going on, what industry they're in, there has been a monumental shift in people actually starting to stand up and to spread their message. And I got re-inspired, and I was like, all right, I need to go back to the drawing board for my own programs and look at how I can best serve everybody who is out there who is interested in sharing a message, who now might have time, right? And to look at our calendar, because I don't know how long this whole quarantine thing is going to last, but I do know in my case, it took me 2 years to figure out how to get onto the TED stages. That included like actually trying out different stories, trying out different speeches, like juggling around with different things. But that process of repetition, of actually trying things out, took time, right? So many of us now have that time. So many of us now are sparked by what's going on in the world. There's just a shift, and now is like such a critical, awesome time to focus on you. focus on you. I know that each time that I've gone through any type of personal shift, I worked with a coach. You know, people often ask like, you know, well, how was it that you started building your business, or how was it that you learned how to tell a story or build a speech? I didn't like just, you know, learn this shit on my own. I worked with other people like constantly, right? So why now? Because representation matters, right? When we start to see people who are like us, or even people that we might affiliate with, it's important, right? Do you all remember this moment with former President Obama and this little black boy, and he was like touching his hair, right? It was the first. This picture always just gives me goosebumps, because he was like, "You have hair like mine. You can see his little lips." He's like, "Oh my gosh, you're the president," right? If we go back to this idea of like, you know, in-group and out-group bias, when we start to see other people like ourselves who are doing it, it gives us hope. It gives us inspiration. And so many people who are here now already are doing it and are representing and standing up for what they believe in. And it's important, because typically in a lot of speaking circles, it's very white, heteronormative males. And that's all out there, y'all. I don't even know if there's a single white man on this. Oh yeah, there's a couple. Anyways, I see y'all. Anyways, representation matters, and it's important. And now more than ever, speaking bureaus, companies, agencies, they're starting to see that they can't just do their work without representation, without diversity, without these voices. So who's gonna be there? Who's actually gonna like take that charge? Hopefully you all are. 1 second. Cool. Awesome. So that's why I wanted to go back to my course, which, if you guys don't mind for a quick second, I just want to fill you in on my course and like what exactly is like story to speech, and what is this program all about? Like, what am I trying to do? So many of you probably saw my video that for the next 6 months, I want to try to work with 50 people to either develop a signature speech or to do a TED or TEDx talk. Now, in my own coaching and what's happened over the past couple of years is that I've noticed that when people are really specific about what they want to get out of the course, I'm able to like address it very intentionally and very like specifically. So I want to show a couple more examples of what I've seen in the past through my own course. Is this? Okay, so I'm just gonna take a second to talk about like what is included in group coaching, like like this kind of setup. So one of the things that I want to be offering in terms of group coaching is weekly group office hours, right? So weekly group office hours where you're able to like ask any question that you want as it relates to your speech, your story, your speaking career. Are you speaking as a business, for a business? How much do you charge, right? One of the things I realized when I started this work was that I was charging way too little. My first like speaking engagement as it related to storytelling was at NYU, and I charged the professor $200. And he was like, yeah. I was like, yeah, awesome, score, right? I was like, baller, what, right? And then like about 3 weeks later, there was somebody who came to my barbershop story show, and he was like, oh, you're doing like coaching now too, right? And I was like, yeah, no doubt. He's like, can I send you off to a speaking engagement in Maryland? And I said, yeah, of course, no problem. He's like, okay, great. They took care of all the logistics and came back with a price of $5,000. $5,000 for a 45-minute talk. And I was like, wait a minute, this is the same damn talk that I just gave at NYU for $200? This is the same damn talk. Like, what in the hell is going on here? And so I started realizing that there is a strategy to finding the right people who will actually book you to speak. So, and a lot of times that comes down to finding the right people, right? Now, in conferences, like large events, I can help people identify who it is that you actually need to target to get on the stages and actually get paid. If that's what your ultimate goal is, to get paid for your speaking, then you need to be targeting the right people. So for example, like I could have gone to like a Spotify employee and said, hey, I'll do a breakout session during your lunch, right? Which probably wouldn't have paid anything. Or I could have gone the route of which I did, which was talking. Can you please be quiet? Thank you. Which was finding the people in the professional development space, you know, those who actually have the purse strings that can put all this stuff together. And in a lot of different industries, there's always that person that you can find. There's always that person that you can find. At colleges and universities, did you all know that there is a specific line item at every college that goes towards like services, like services for the students that are not part of the curriculum, they're not sports, you know, so a lot of times they go into speakers. And there's three main categories of speakers that they hire. People who can talk about motivation, like motivational speakers, people who can talk about leadership, like leadership development, and people who can talk about prevention, like alcohol prevention. Sorry. Alcohol abuse prevention, drug prevention, hazing prevention, that kind of stuff. So, so depending on like what industry you're targeting, will depend on like what strategy you need to do in order to target the right people in your message and in your offerings. So, so one of the things that you know that might be on your mind is like, okay, well, who do I target within my industry, or who do I need to get in front of, and how do I get in front of them in order to actually, you know, have them pay me a premium? So one of the things that we talk about, one of the things that we could talk about in office hours is how do we position ourselves, how do we find those right people? So weekly group office hours are one of the things that I do with my coaching programs. Nope. All right, quiet. So the second thing that we, it's like a child, oh my gosh. The second thing that we provide is like a resource hub. So the resource hub is like meant to like provide different types of information depending on like what it is that you are looking to do. So for example, this is like one of our main pages where I kind of just like break down a lot of different resources that are available to you, both inside and outside of the program. So the first one is a webinar where I go through like what are the steps that I went through in both of my applications from 2012, my applications from 2013, how I changed my application to actually reflect what I wanted to, the idea, as opposed to just the story. So that's like a webinar that people can go check out. If you want to know how to do like how to get paid speaking gigs, that's a separate webinar. A workbook that I have called The Art of Storytelling and Leadership, podcasts, interviews. So all of these different options in terms of like what it is that you're looking for are kind of included in this resource hub. And there's lots of different content from lots of different people that show you like everything from like outlining a script, making a best structure for your talk. Basically, like I have over the past couple of years have just been like finding and sourcing different inspiration, different ideas that are open to the public, and making it into a course that's accessible and easy. So the course basically like goes step by step by step. First, I'm starting off with who you are, then going into like what makes you a quote unquote expert in that particular field. And keep in mind, you don't need to be the expert in your field, but you should be an expert in your field, right? From there, figuring out what is that story. From there, figuring out like how to turn that into your speech with like different types of module help. And then from there, figuring out what is that thing that's going to be your sale. So it's the speech to the story to speech to sale paradigm, which is what I like to call, like to call this program. So it includes a lot of different like, you know, manuals, guides, and like figuring out like how to do it. And hopefully it's visually compelling and interesting for people. The second thing that we do is we have a private engaged community. So this screenshot is from my first beta group, and I'm going to get into like, you know, what this upcoming group is going to be about in just a minute. Okay, are you calm? Can I put you back down? Thank you. Awesome. It's a virtual life. Okay. Yeah. So in the private Facebook community, this is a way for people to just like to stay on top of like what's going on. So these are a couple of snapshot from two people who are in the first round of my story to speech to sale course. Shannon Tayson, he was happy about putting out his 100th episode, and he got one of the largest proposals at this point in his career. For coaching, so you know, just lots of support. And then Tracy, you know, she put out here, you know, you guys, it's got an offer from Lloyd College, accepted my proposal, 6-week class in storytelling, negotiated the fee of $3,000 for a 6-week course of 2 hours each, right? And this kind of stuff, y'all, this stuff gets me amped. This gets me amped because this is a direct return on the investment that they made in me, that they made into this course. And it's a direct reflection that the systems that I put into place are working. They're actually like, you know, they're actually like doing stuff for people. The next thing that we talk a lot about in this community is upcoming opportunities. So what I have is just like a master list of like all of the TEDx's that are coming up down the line from like current until 2022, I want to say. The list is still being worked and tweaked as new things are being added on. But almost every week, I was adding different opportunities. What I started realizing is that because there's so many different industries, it was hard to find like specific events for each person's industry. Like one person might be a financial person and their dream is to get on the FinCon. Another person might be a podcaster and their dream is to go to PodFest or whatever it might be. But one of the things I realized is regardless of your industry, TEDx is a platform that is just like open for anybody who is like ready to actually amplify that idea and get it out there. So what I started doing instead was just posting TEDx opportunities. So this was, as you can see, this was from a couple of years ago, TEDx Jacksonville. And then of course, this one on the right is from Big TED, which is the process that I went through, which was an audition process where you're given 6 minutes to put together your signature speech. And it consisted of a video, a 2-minute video, a written essay, and the idea, the story and the idea and why you're an expert. And you know, I kind of like outline all this stuff in the webinar and plan on going through it back again. But so I go through like the granular details of what it means to put together your application. I realized that there's a difference between submitting your application and submitting your demo reel, and then actually like doing the damn thing. But one of the things I totally had forgotten about in my own professional life is the fact that I sat on a lot of admissions committees. I sat on the admissions committee at UCLA. I sat on the admissions committee at Harvard. And I know what it's like to have to go through tons and tons and tons of applications and say like, yes, this person is a fit. No, this person is not, right? But it's all about finding that right fit. So in your quest, the TEDx's that you might want to look at are like local opportunities, or they might be ones where they have had speakers that have been similar to you, right? So my goal is to start to push them out there, and then as we talk, we figure out like which ones make the most sense for you, which ones do you want to apply for, and what's your goal, what's your dream? Because if you can reach your dream, then that gives me juice. That makes me amped. You see, sometimes I'm already amped. I don't even drink coffee, but whatever. So with upcoming speaking opportunities, most of them are focused on TEDx, which is why I'm now going to be doing a separate course just on those who are ready to do TEDx, and just for those who want to figure out like, what is the story, what is the speech, and how do I get it to the right audience. So a little success story here. This is Casey Berglund. She was also in our Story to Speech course, and this was 2019. She's out in Canada, and she booked her TEDx talk. It was doing stuff around the talk was called "Let Your Body Lead," and I helped her figure out how to target the ones that were in her area, which was in Canada, and the content. And her business now has just been blowing up. I mean, she had a certification course, so she's putting in the work. Don't get me wrong, like all these people have put in the work in order to get on these stages to amplify the message. But it works. This system absolutely completely works if you let it. This is a picture of Casey at TEDx YYC, and I make a commitment to any of the people that I work with that if I can get you on a TEDx stage, I will come and see you. So this was my first time to Calgary, witnessing Casey delivering her TEDx talk. So, and then last but not least in the course is what I consider to be VIP, the Content Accelerator. And the Content Accelerator is going to be a separate 2 to 3 day section of the course where all we're doing is we're looking at how do we actually take your story and share it, because it's all about actually doing it, getting up on your feet, doing it, redoing it until like it feels right. This is actually from a couple of days ago, and I think I might have some help writing people on the call. I can't see you all right now. But anyways, this is from a couple of days ago. And this is what gave me confidence to know that in a virtual space, this can totally work. This is a group of about 12 advocates, health equity access people. I was able to create like little different breakout rooms and train a couple of different people to go into those breakout rooms, listen to the content, tweak it, and then each one of them was able to come back. We worked together, tweak the content again, tweet it again, and then they had a final share. So this is pictures from that final share, which was a couple of days ago. And this is part of the reason why I was so amped to be able to come and bring this back to you all, because it's working. And if you're able to,
Yeah.
uh-oh,
Tired.
I need to put you on mute, whoever you are.
To pick containers out?
No, I'll do
Let's
it.
see.
I like to wait until.
There we go. Found the culprit. Yeah, so this gave me inspiration, because I knew after the end of this that if with the right training, with the right timing, with the right coaching, any one of these people could be on any stage worldwide, on a local stage in Hawaii to a TEDx stage in Canada, right? And it's just a matter of like getting that right kind of training and format. So this is a separate VIP option that is separate from the course, like the actual course itself, and the group coaching and the Facebook stuff. So the course itself is a bunch of modules, group work, and then the Facebook group. And the VIP Content Accelerator is a separate 2 to 3 day process to actually just like work on your content over a couple of days. And we'll do a final share where, you know, you can invite some people to your to the virtual space, kind of similar to what we're doing here. And to get that muscle memory kind of like up and running as we start to build out our speeches for the next couple of months. So now you're all curious. How much does this cost, right? Let's see here. So the course itself, which I forgot, I'll show you all the course itself. It's actually it's already live, it's online. But the online program itself are downloadable audio guides, video guides, to the private Facebook group. And like I said, it's broken down into like about 6 modules. So it's a self-paced thing, but considering that we're going to be all together, the goal is for you to have a concentrated 6 weeks where, you know, you can come into office hours, you can chat with me, be part of the Facebook group, you can do what you want. So for those 6 weeks, you can go through the entire online program. You know, some of you might go through a little bit quicker, some of you might be a little bit shorter, but the online program itself is $750. Okay. The second step would be the exclusive plan. Okay. Now the exclusive plan is basically the same thing that we have from the original plan. So you have like the online access to the modules, the step-by-step guides, and then 8 weeks of coaching that will happen basically on the side in the smaller subgroups, right? So this is an opportunity for you to try out your content in smaller groups, because in the other plan you'll have access to the office hours, but I won't be going into your content on that particular plan. On this one, we'll have those weeks of actually like working on your content. And then I have a very VIP level, which is going to be basically you working directly with me on your application. So either it's your application for TED, it's going to be your content strategy, it's going to be your actual speech itself. So you'll get everything that's included above, all the modules, the group training, the Facebook group, and then I'm sorry, this is one 90-minute session. That should say 2 120-minute sessions. A little bit of a typo. I'll fix that for y'all pretty soon. But so that's the VIP plan. And essentially, I am going to be starting the program as of the 16th. Oops, slide. The 16th of July. So starting on the 16th of July, like the course is currently open for anybody who wants to join. On the 16th of July, we're going to go live. So not this upcoming week. I'm going to have the open enrollment for the course. We'll be starting the week after with live office hours and any type of like feedback or and that kind of stuff. And for those of you who are doing like the one-on-one stuff, I'll send you a Calendly invite. So that regardless of where you are in the world, it'll translate into your local time zone. And we can get into the process of actually putting your stuff together, all right? So for those of you who are interested, this program is starting like in a week and a half, right? For those of you who want a little bit more time, I'm gonna have another 2 sessions between now and December. So this first one is gonna be July, August. The one after that will be September. And then the one after that will be October, November, okay? Each one of the programs is pretty much gonna be the same. Oh, I'm sorry, actually, no, there's a difference. This first program is going to be a little bit of a shift from what I've done before in terms of story to speech to sale, which is focused mostly on people who want to, I'm gonna stop sharing for a moment so I can see you all. Go back to seeing you all. Oh, there you are. Hi, everybody. Hello, hi, Nelly. Awesome. Oh, yay, I can finally see you all. So yeah, so the plan is to start getting people who are either interested now or who know that they want to do this. With the difference being, now I want to start with the people who are ready to do story to speech. Those who are just ready to figure out what is the signature speech. Now keep in mind that people who were ready and intentional were able to use story to speech as well to land TEDx. And if you come into the course and you say that's what my goal is, that's not a problem. But for those of you who are specifically looking to do a TEDx talk, for the next month and a half, I'm going to be building out the content so that you can actually go through the same type of processes. And I'm doing this as a beta launch, meaning that each time I do a new program, I bring in people who I know, love, who can support this process to figure out, like, you know, what needs to be tweaked, what really works, what's not working, what do you want to know more of? Because I'm all about customizing my experiences. I'm all about making sure that you get results and some type of return on your investment. So this will probably be the prices now, only until like the end of the year. And then after that, it's going to be something totally different. Once I have a proven system that this is working, that people are into it, it's going to be like totally different, which is why I am dedicated to working with 50 of you all between now and the end of the year to get your idea out there. So, whew, all right. Whew, that was a lot. Thank you, Josh. Thank you. So I am going to open it up for questions because I know that was a lot, and I'd appreciate you all sticking in there for an hour and a half. So what are your questions, Sandrine and Carla and Warren? That's exactly what I imagine a text from Common would sound like. That is exactly what the text was. Cool. So any questions or thoughts or anything that's not clear? And it could be about like any part of the presentation.
Oh, I have a question.
Yeah.
Hi, Dawn. Thanks so much. That was really helpful and exciting. Can you just explain a little bit more? I don't think I completely understood the difference between the second and the third offering. Is the third basically that you would help with the TED applications? Is that the main difference?
Oh yeah, great. So the main difference for the third one is, and it's actually basically up to you to tell me what you want the most help with. But it's 2 to 3 hour sessions. What people have used it before is one person used the first session just to look at the application, meaning, okay, like, is the demo video looking good? Is the idea actually sounding legit? Is this the right event for me to be, you know, looking at? And the second one was just focused on her content in terms of actually kind of like going through and sounding like if it sounded good to somebody who wasn't part of her industry. So so that's the difference with the third option, is like, you know, we just have that exclusive time one-on-one with me to do that. The second option is that we do that in small groups. So I have trained people who will be in breakout groups, and in those breakout groups, you'll be working on the content, coming back together, and then, yeah.
Got it. Yeah, thank you.
Cool. Oh, and there's a question about payment plans. Yes, I do have a payment plan. What is it? If you can send me an email, I will jot that down for you because I totally forgot. Thank you for reminding me. But yes, I do have payment plans. Let's see, who else has questions? Let me go back to the second page over here. Any questions? Okay. For those of you who are sending me messages about the payment plan, definitely I will make sure that we got you covered in that regard. Any questions? Did you guys, this all make sense? I know it's a lot that's kind of going on in the world, but but I'm hoping that this is all kind of like coming together for people. So are people excited? Like, what do you all think? Like, do you want to do this kind of stuff now? Have you been engaging in yourself? Have you been actually like letting yourself breathe and investing in yourself? Like, where are you all at? Kind of out of curiosity. Yeah, Nelly.
For me, it's more of I've seen so many TED Talks with people with disabilities that are inspiration porn. It's like, I did this and I overcame all these odds. I want to flip that paradigm in the sense of, why are we the exception and not the rule? You know, it's looking beyond what you first see. And so I'm trying to, that's what I'm wrestling with, is how to, because I've had tragedy in my life, but I want to show how every step I had it down, but then I was able to resolve it through community, through family.
Right.
So I'm struggling with that idea. I'm like, yes, I want to do this. It's one of my life goals, but I also want to change the paradigm of having the conversation only be about overcoming odds and more about overcoming the visual or overcoming the perception that people have.
Right. Excellent. And that's one of the things that we look at when we go into this process is first figuring out what exactly is out there already, and what is your different unique angle, your unique spin, and then where exactly you would want to present this message to and why. So I should also mention that there are different like levels of TED Talks. There's different kind of like licensings that each one receives. So we kind of figure out which one would make the most sense based off of what you need. Typically, what I'm trying to say is there are larger TEDx's that have like multi-camera views, for example, right? Really nice lighting, really great stages, really solid content, and people who they accept into the program. So ultimately, like we kind of like look at all these different elements. Like, is this idea different, you know, in terms of not being the same kind of repetitive thing? Is it the right kind of stage that we want to get you onto? And then does it just feel right? You know, a lot of this is like making sure that we are really like in touch with ourselves and how this is feeling. Because if it feels right for us, then it's gonna be an easier process than trying to pigeonhole or shove a bunch of words into a speech, you know? So yeah, absolutely. Because, you know, I for those of you who don't know, I think Nelly was one of the first applications or one of the first people that I met when I was sitting up the admissions committee at Harvard. And yeah. And so she was a year or two behind me, but it was really cool to be able to see you first, just like check out the school, and then actually to get you into the university. So that was awesome journey that you've always been on.
I still remember crashing at your place when I'm like, I'm here for looking at it seriously. I was so nervous, and you were the calming force. I was so nervous.
Oh, thanks, Nelly. Let's see. Are there anything else, like people into this? They want to do a talk, or what kind of talk do you have in mind? Yeah, Angel.
I remember watching a TEDx, a New York one, in person, and one of the speakers was Jo Firestone. So she did like more of a comedy type TED talk, and I guess that is because I do comedy mostly and storytelling. But yeah, during the pandemic, when I'm doing my online shows, they are gearing towards more like storytelling / speeches, because I talk now a lot about mental health with the Asian American community and racism and all that. So it starts off like funny, and then it goes into sort of like a call to action or something where I need people to like think about. So just I guess the translation or the transition of like comedy and speech, and how, and just wondering the application, what that is like for like, because Jo Firestone's whole TED talk was very like I forget what but it was kind of like why dumb people make the world go around or something like that. It was very like just like fun, but so yeah, just trying to figure out that.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the things I always recommend also is just like, as much as you are able to be yourself, like if you're comedic, if you're a comedic person normally, like to let that shine, right? If you're typically shy, just like, to be okay with that process, and people will acknowledge and just want to hear from you in general, right? But we definitely look at ways that we can like make it lighthearted, especially if it's something that's heavy. So you can like punch them with a laugh and then hug them with like, the call to action, right? But there's definitely ways of that we kind of look at the emotion and what you want people to do or believe or say as a result of listening or hearing your talk. So yeah, absolutely key. Absolutely key.
So,
I had a quick question.
Don,
Yeah.
I have a question too.
Sure. Let's do Carmen and then Josh, and then I'll answer the question about our TED Talk still happening in this time of COVID.
So what happened? Couple years or many years ago in Mexico, I have the experience of start doing public speaking, and I have this miracle that happened to me also, that I was afraid to charge. I was doing like back then, many years ago, 20 pesos an hour, and somebody paid me like 180 an hour for a week or something like that, like something crazy. And my career as a speaker grew up, and my life changed as a speaker. But I have been, my main profession is doing therapy. So when I moved to this country, I got really shy about talking public speaking, because I don't know the culture, the jokes, the appropriateness. So I decided that I am going just to do therapy, but I can help myself. So I started a podcast. And in the last 3 months, the podcast grew up like 5-6 times in the COVID area. So I don't want to keep working for free. Yeah. Because if I do therapy, my hour is $220 an hour. So, and I love podcasting, but I don't know how to convert this podcasting into income too.
Got you. So you're looking to like figure out how to monetize on your podcast and your speaking engagements?
Yeah, monetize on speaking engagements. The podcast I always wanted to be free because it's mental health, and I want people to have this free access. But I want to monetize in a speaking engagement. I want the companies or whoever has money for me to pay me for me to keep servicing the people who don't have money.
Awesome. So your goal then is to work with the companies who can pay you for your work.
Yeah.
Got it. Awesome. Yeah. So one of the things that that we look for in story to speech is, first off, identifying who it is that has the purse strings. Well, first of all, identifying, it's corporate that you're looking for, right? So who within that corporate market would be hiring people like yourself in order to talk about therapy or talk about like any type of like mental health or, what it is that you're necessarily talking about. And then figuring out a way that it's packaged, that it serves, the people that you want to serve, and B, is actually going to get you the price that you deserve, right? The nice thing about the fact that you have a podcast is the fact that you're constantly putting out content if you're a podcaster, right? So your audiences are probably like already like tuning in. It's really cool to hear that it's blowing up at the time of COVID. So now it's a matter of seeing can we add your offerings or some type of call to action to your speeches, possibly to your podcast. Do you do any type of call to action on your podcast? And do you feel comfortable doing that?
I don't feel comfortable asking for money. I put it a nonprofit. I make it into a nonprofit. So I don't feel comfortable asking for fundraising, but I want to get comfortable on it. But I definitely, people start asking me for therapy from different parts of the country. And that is psychoeducation because of the license. So even though I don't ask, still people get, and I still get donations. So I just want to get more comfortable asking for.
Right. Great. So I think one of the things that we could look at is how we're actually framing your ask.
Yeah.
because one of the things that it's kind of going back to this idea of like when and where do you speak for free, right?
Yes.
So, people often ask me like, should I speak for free? The question, I mean, the answer
Sorry,
is,
sorry. When I start asking, people with low income, very low incomes, start giving me money, so I stop asking.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was like people in Nicaragua gave me $20 when their fee is $50 a week. So I really stopped asking because they thought I really needed. I was like dying of not producing or something. So
right.
I don't want to do that.
It might be a matter of shifting your call to action in terms of saying, like, you know, if you're with an organization or a business that wants to really work on mental health for your employees, please be in touch. You know, as opposed to the people from Nicaragua or those from low incomes that you're not really targeting. So it might be a matter of positioning your call to action, kind of like what you want people to do as a result of listening to your podcast or listening to your speech. So it might be a matter of like reframing what we're asking for.
Yes.
Yeah, but yeah, we can definitely talk about that and figure out the best way to tap into A, the right market, and B, the right positioning of your language to do that. Absolutely. Cool. How about we jump over to you, Josh?
Hey, Don. No, thank you so much. I appreciate you and giving us some words of wisdom. Two quick things I wanted to ask about. One, can you talk a little bit about the power of vulnerability and how much of yourself that you show in not only developing your content, but knowing when to draw that line between being completely vulnerable and also knowing that it is a story that you want to take people through to kind of get to that sale point? If you can maybe share something like that. And then two, for those who are educators like myself or certified instructors, any specific advice on how to kind of create that niche for yourself and trying to think that there's so many educators out there who talk about a number of issues, you know, again, knowing how and when to be vulnerable, because I think as educators, we can't move or shift paradigms in the way of thinking unless we use ourselves as instruments. And I'm wondering, how did you use that in your experience that can maybe help and inspire us who are maybe trying to break through, who know a lot of these folks on this call right now are probably game changers on our own rights, but knowing how you as a coach, any just insights to talk a little bit about how to draw that line of vulnerability.
Awesome. So one of the things that I learned in my own, from one of the people who taught me how to be a coach, is this saying that I kind of keep with me all the time, that we tell stories from our scars and not our wounds. We tell stories from our scars and not our wounds. So when you ask about like what might be too vulnerable, the question has to go back to you in terms of have you healed from anything that may have been traumatic or anything that may have been difficult, or something that might be quote unquote used against you, right? So when we say scars, not wounds, a wound is like, you know, imagine you're like running down the street, you trip, you fall, you skid up your leg, and it's this huge gushing wound, right? It's bloody, it's messy, it looks like a mess, right? And you're crying and you're sobbing, and you come back home and you're like, oh, wifey or mama or whatever, I'm all jacked up, right? You haven't quite dealt with it yet until time heals. Time passes, it becomes crusty and it becomes ugly, but you're able to like look back at your leg and say, this happened from the time that I was being a dumbass running down the street with no shoes on, right? And I use that analogy to kind of show that when it comes to like being vulnerable, a lot of times it comes back to, have I done the work, and can I share something about this experience that's not going to make me re-traumatized? Is it something that I have overcome? Like, you know, if you have gone through something and you haven't learned from it or you haven't changed from it, it's not ready for stage. So if it's something, you know, if you get on stage and you're like crying and you're like, if I just went through a divorce, you know, my mother just died, like, you know, people are going to feel sorry for you, and you're not going to get them to that space of taking them to the next level, right? But if you're able to say, like, you know, I remember when this happened, and this is what I learned from it. so when it comes to vulnerability, it's a matter of sharing those things that you feel comfortable and have healed from, but you also have learned from, you know. And as an educator, I can imagine that you're constantly looking for examples from your own life that you can tap into that show a reflection for your students or for those who you're working with, that they too can, you know, learn this lesson, or they too can overcome, right? So, and of course, there are times when you just want to be able to process things that, you know, that might be really vulnerable. If you need to process it, the space for that is therapy, right? The space for that isn't the stage. So that's kind of the answer to your first question. The second question
about your experience and how that kind of inspired you, or how you kind of had to draw that line to developing your content. About how far and how deep you had to go to way back in 2012 and 2013 when you said you fell in that story, you know, talking about your brother, where you were just sharing, but it turned into something, it morphed into something a little different, right? You said there was a difference between the end story and what you shared on stage.
Right.
How do you kind of discern between those two, and in your thought process, trying to figure out what would be good for one, but without kind of losing sight of your true authentic self?
I typically, so another process that I take people through is kind of like looking at what's called the storytelling burrito, where where like I imagine that like
LA, so a lot of things go through my mind with the burrito.
I know, I'm making myself hungry.
We go back 20, dude. It's okay.
Totally. So I kind of like look for those moments that, like when I was talking about that exercise story, Homework for Life, where it's like, you know, those like different moments that that I could potentially use for any potential story. What I typically do is I kind of go back to those log of moments to figure out which one of these moments is best going to express what I want to, where I want my audience to go, or like which one of these nuggets is best going to articulate where I want to be. So the reason why it's called a storytelling burrito is because, like, you know, typically when you walk into a burrito bar, you know, you get one rice, right? White rice, brown rice. I usually choose white. You get some beans. I usually choose the black beans over the pinto beans because I love the black ones. You know, I usually choose a chicken instead of the veggies or the pork or the carnitas or whatever. And then I get, like, you know, one salsa, and then top it up with like guacamole, right? When we're thinking about our experiences and our stories, we're choosing selectively just that one meat, right? That one meat is going to be like your core story, right? The rice is going to be like your supporting stories, right? And you get to choose these different elements, and you put it into like one perfect package. So, you know, and the salsa is kind of like your spin on it, your you know, your MO, right? The way that you kind of look and address things. So typically when I'm working with people, and I'm working with myself even, I figure out, okay, you know, for this story, I want to have people think about this topic differently. Do I choose this meat or do I choose this meat, right? This meat is a little bit too raw still. It's not cooked. I haven't healed from it, you know. So, but this other piece of it can be used just as well for this particular example, right? So I kind of like look at like all these different segments of my homework and my experiences and moments, and I choose the one that makes the most sense for where I'm at personally, and if it's a direct reflection of what I want my people to do or say or change, you know.
I appreciate it, Don. Thank you. I know other folks got questions, but I appreciate the burrito analogy.
No problem. I'll answer Tracy's question, which is are TED Talks still happening at the time of COVID? Great question. So one of my dear friends works at TED, and I asked her the same question probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago because I was really curious myself. And as most of you know, TED is typically like a 4-day event where people show up live, and they, you know, they're hanging out all together. This year, they're changing it into an 8-week virtual summit. So, and the reason why they're doing it like that is because they realize that for the price, I mean, typically a TED ticket is like, I think, $10,000, something like that. And we just learned differently online than we do like if we're like physically in a space. So they changed the model a bit so that it's like you can log in, you're hearing the speaker, but you also have like a salon kind of situation where you're having a little bit more one-on-one time with the speaker. And I might be messing this up. It might be, you know, it's a little bit different, but essentially that's how they're changing it so that it's still virtual, it's still TED, but it's a different way of interacting. And that's what we're starting to see with like a lot of different engagements, a lot of different companies, businesses, speaking bureaus. People are now getting the gist of shifting things virtually. And the benefit is if you can do it in a virtual space, you already have it under your belt to be able to do it again when we're back all together in a physical space. So yeah, it's TED Talks are still happening. They look different, they're gonna feel different for a while, but they're still going on. Veronica.
Yeah, my goal is more right now, it's storytelling to speech. Because I do like I'm at the point like, you know, I work in the industry in film, but I also still have more to give for myself, like to tell stories. And basically, like we were talking about creative writing, like I've been reflecting a lot of quotes into poetry. And so for that, you know, if there's like a story I could set, you know, basically I would like, that's where I really would like to go, like where I'm heading to. It's more like, you know, if I could write speeches of topics that people talk about and then ideas all wrapped together, I could put it all together in that sense and then make it as a story so people can actually listen to for the idea and the point that is established.
So
that's my goal.
Oh, that's your goal. Oh, excellent. Got it. So have you already done storytelling, or have you worked to share your story publicly before?
No, but I've done it for fun when I was a kid. So it's kind of like I'm going back full circle where I'm at right now. So it's like I did as a kid, and then you know, younger, like I want to say 20 years ago, and then it just stopped because, you know, you gotta pick a job, career, and all that stuff. And then finally, with this time that we have, I just want to get back to doing that, get on the bandwagon again, and you know, and expand from there. That something that I feel like I should been doing it 20 years ago.
Right. Awesome. Yeah. Well, we definitely start off with what's the story. The story is the foundation. It's the core of your talk. It's the core of who you are. And a lot of times, your story is your why. You know, it's like, why am I even passionate about being a pediatrician? Why am I passionate about being a coach? You know, what is it that I've experienced or have seen that makes this journey unique to me? So we always start off with a story. But then that's just the first building block, you know, and it can be used, as you know, as its own building block. You know, there's a lot of people who have just go on The Moth or go on different storytelling shows, and they're able to sell their books. They're able to write memoirs and get in front of agents just off of the story, right? So, and then of course the goal for this particular program is to figure out what is that thing that you want to be able to do or utilize with the story, because just being able to tell the story by itself is going to be a lot of fun, but ultimately, like, if you want to be able to monetize off of it, or if you want to be able to like to have a larger platform, we need to be able to translate that into something else, right? So, but the story is absolutely the first thing to start off with. And if you're already writing your stories, you're probably, you know, on the right path.
All right, I have to go because I'm on a different time zone. To me, it's 10 p.m. So I'm going to get myself ready to go to bed. So goodbye, everybody.
Bye. Thanks. Great seeing you.
Likewise. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Of course. All right. Any other questions? People just want to hang out and catch up? I can stop the recording. All right, I'm gonna stop the recording and then we're just gonna catch up because I just want to hear from y'all.